For those who've seen the cases of Rebecca Huismann and Stephanie Bennett, either featured in the news or on such programs as Forensic Files and Unusual Suspects, the brutality of these crimes will forever haunt our memories. One unique thing about the case is that Rebecca and Stephanie's shared killer had an inconsistent modus operandi. Rebecca had been followed to her Michigan home in her car, and in what was likely a botched kidnapping, she was shot point blank right outside her home for her boyfriend to find her the next morning.
I need an ambulance.
What's the problem there?
My girlfriend. I just woke up and I noticed that she wasn't with me. So I go out there and she's out in her car and her door's open and I go out there and she's got blood all over her face and I can't hear a pulse or a heartbeat or nothing.
As terrible as that is, Stephanie's murder was completely different, took place all the way in North Carolina, and was the product of everyone's greatest fear. She was awakened from her dreams to a real-life nightmare of someone sexually assaulting her before strangling her to death with a wire. The police had a few suspects, tipped off by the fact that there were multiple peeping Toms in Stephanie's area. Eventually, they zoned in on Drew Edward Planton, a tenant at a neighboring complex who worked for the Department of Agriculture. Drew, a man described as socially awkward and reclusive, allegedly stalked Stephanie for weeks, peeping into her windows before finally breaking in and waiting for hours until she returned home and fell asleep. After being uncooperative during police questioning, Drew raised his guard and meticulously avoided disposing of anything that could be used to gather his DNA. Drew would eventually slip up, though, when his boss helped law enforcement by assigning Drew a task which required him to wear gloves. And from there, police obtained Drew's DNA through the worn gloves. Perhaps even more memorable than the lack of MO and the game of cat and mouse he played with detectives was how Drew reacted after being apprehended. He went into a state of catatonia, refusing to open his eyes for his mugshot and having to be wheeled in and out of the courtroom because he refused to speak or move. Drew's younger brother Dwayne and their mother Sarah stood by his side until the end. An end that would come sooner than his loved ones expected. About 11 weeks after his arrest, Drew put a plastic bag over his head and hanged himself with the hem of his bedsheet before his trial began. With the DNA evidence and other incriminating items found in Drew's apartment that only the killer would have, such as Stephanie's laundry basket, Rebecca's mail, and the gun that killed her, there was little else to do but close the case and allow the families of the victims to mourn. The public was left with this haunting case burned in their memories. There was nothing left to be said until, in 2011, Drew's brother Dwayne became an unexpected chronicler of Drew's troubled life. Through an AMA on Football Guys, Dwayne's candid revelations forced readers familiar with the case to see Drew as somebody's brother, and it created an unexpectedly fascinating epilogue that may leave us with a cliffhanger. Before we continue, you can help spread the word about these unanswered questions by making sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and ring the bell. These quick clicks also go a long way in supporting this channel. Thanks for watching. Now, back to the video. Dwayne's AMA gives us a better understanding of his brother beyond the killer who refused to open his eyes, speak, or walk after getting caught. Unsurprisingly, the AMA wasn't the most flattering description of Drew, with Dwayne often recounting how disagreeable his brother was, interested in only material goods, and just overall strange. For example, the earliest definitive time I recall him being weird was when he was about 7 or 8. Drew didn't like to brush his teeth, partly because he derived enjoyment from blowing his horrible breath into people's faces. He blew his stank breath into his best friend's face, and the kid said his breath smelled like Brussels sprouts. Drew never had anything to do with that kid again, and they had been really close. Sleepovers, always chose each other when picking teams, sat next to each other on the school bus. The AMA also reveals Drew's fondness for the fantasy book series The Chronicles of Thomas Covenant, where the protagonist grapples with his own dark impulses, including rape and his immense amount of self-hatred. This provides a poignant insight into Drew's psyche, as Thomas Covenant is a character Drew seemed to identify with. Perhaps the most compelling thing in all of the AMA was that Drew and Dwayne's mother, Sarah, found a bloody futon mattress in the trunk of Drew's Mustang, with a blood stain the size of a manhole cover and was thick and scabby. Another compelling thing about the AMA was that Sarah and Dwayne found a box filled with mail addressed to Rebecca Huismann, some notes in female handwriting, a used menstrual pad, photos taken of women, photos of the license plates on cars, and several newspaper clippings of people's wedding announcements. The most frustrating thing of all was Sarah and Dwayne attempted to turn all of this over to the Lansing, Michigan police, but law enforcement showed little interest. As Dwayne described it, they acted like I was handing them a dirty diaper. This indifference from police is a recurring theme in Dwayne's narrative and raises troubling questions about how many other potential victims had been overlooked. After 3 months of waiting for law enforcement to potentially change their mind, Sarah understandably grew tired of the blood-stained mattress in her possession and threw it out. While police departments are known to be overworked and understaffed, and thus are forced to be extra selective about the cases they take on, it's shocking to know that evidence of a likely crime from a proven killer didn't cause the Lansing, Michigan police to reprioritize some things. Sure, Drew was long dead, but what about an opportunity to solve an open murder case and give closure to a victim's loved ones? Given Drew's long-term suspicious and strange behavior, combined with his geographically dispersed life, having lived and worked in Michigan, New Jersey, North Carolina, and Vermont, make it probable that his crimes could have spread across multiple states. And given his lack of MO, the crimes probably wouldn't be the easiest to link to him without physical evidence, making that bloody mattress a significant missed opportunity. Even unusual suspects noted the possibility of Drew having other victims, and WRAL reported that police were looking into additional victims, but nothing ever became of that. While the crimes make it so easy to demonize Drew, Dwayne's AMA offers a more nuanced view that forensic files, unusual suspects, and news outlets couldn't cover. Dwayne's candid reflections reveal a family caught in the crossfire of public scrutiny and personal grief, struggling to find a sense of normalcy in the aftermath of horror. Through the lens of Dwayne's AMA, we're compelled to recognize that family members of killers are also victims, enduring a different kind of pain and stigma. Dwayne seems well enough, but the struggles his mother had, who passed away in 2023, adds another layer of sadness to this whole case. While Drew's known crimes are horrific enough, the possibility of additional victims casts a longer, darker shadow that may never fully dissipate. And the fact that the potential reality is being brought up by the killer's own brother makes the horrific possibility seem all the more likely that Drew killed others.